You are now experiencing Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. Less Than Fresh is a free-form discussion of movies and other related media, so it should be assumed there are potential spoilers hiding around every corner. Consider this your official spoiler warning. This podcast is rated not safe for work and contains mild cursing. So, if you're uncomfortable with that, then you can go yourself in the and then get the out of here. This podcast is designed to be taken auditorily or optically. If you've somehow ingested it orally or rectally, please induce vomiting immediately. Now, on with the show.
All right, and we are live.
Yay!
Welcome to Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. My name is Jasper. That guy over there is Cassidy. I'm never going to get that right. That's 3 episodes in a row. I've gone, But,
someday I'll remember.
Sometime on my right from my left. If this was just strictly an audio podcast, I wouldn't even have to know that much. But we are a movie podcast. We talk about movie reviews, everything related to movies, even if it's tangentially related to movies. We discuss it here on the show. As I said, I'm Jasper. That's Cassidy.
Hey.
And so we always like to warm up every episode. We're speaking of which, this is episode 3, entitled Episode 3, Ninjas Kick Back. I always do these punny episode titles. The first one was a quote from Jurassic Park. The second one was a quote from Spaceballs. This is a reference to the epic 90s sequel to the epic 90s movie 3 Ninjas. And then, of course, the sequel was 3 Ninjas Kick Back. And so there you have it. Episode 3, Ninjas Kick Back.
I said definitely a quality movie podcast with references like that.
Thank you. I didn't know which way you were going to go with that. I didn't know if it was going to be you were going to totally berate me or if it was going to be praise. That turned out it was high praise. Not really, because you're being totally facetious.
I'm like, apparently you missed the sarcasm there.
I hear it the way I want to hear it.
Pretty much, don't we all?
Yeah, probably. So we always like to start off the show with a segment where we warm up. We just kind of BS. It was originally called Playing Hee Haw with the Fuck Around Gang, to quote the movie The Candidate. You didn't like that, so we changed the segment to not Playing Hee Haw with the Fuck Around Gang because it was something different. But this time we're getting serious. This time is just not playing. So we are not playing during our initial BS segment. Before we started the show, you asked me if I'd done anything interesting, if I'd seen anything interesting, and I went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine.
Well, that's interesting because I just recently went and saw that myself.
And it's rare that movies that I want to see actually come to this town, so I kind of want to go see it a second time and see it a third time.
I'm assuming that means you actually enjoyed it. Because, I mean, I know you do have some masochistic tendencies and some self-esteem, but if you didn't like it, I don't think you hate yourself that much. If this was one of those masochistic tendency things, then I wouldn't want to go see it a second and third time in the theater. The movie industry can get fucked. I'm not paying theater ticket prices
to see a movie I hate 3 times. No, I'll wait until it comes to a video or streaming service or something.
What are the movie? Just out of curiosity, what are movie ticket prices around where you're at?
You know what? I didn't even pay attention. I had Movie Pass, and then I had Stubbs A List, and then I had Movie Pass again. And so when I walked into the theater, all I knew was that they had Deadpool and Wolverine playing. So it was very much a situation of shut up and take my money. I even sprang for popcorn, which I'm enough of a skinflint. I don't usually do, but bought a ticket, bought the popcorn. Did not look at the receipt. I do not know how much they actually charge for me.
Around here, it's around $8. Like about $6 for a matinee.
Yeah, I think I have the ticket stub somewhere around here on my desk if I really wanted to dig for it. I do not. Okay. So, we said we give an official spoiler warning at the beginning of the show, and we say, you could very well be spoiled for anything that we talk about on this podcast. You said in the last episode that you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to do that. But just general thoughts.
The fact that we gave I guess I didn't really think about that at the time, but the fact that we've given warnings so they know there's going to be spoilers. I just don't want to be that guy that just spouts out spoilers without any sort of warning so that people know,
Yeah.
Because I hate it when people spoil stuff for me. So I'm like, no. I really enjoyed it, though I kind of felt like they went a little bit overboard in the foul language and the graphic violence. As it felt kind of like okay, Disney bought Fox, and everybody was worried about, oh no, what's going to happen to Deadpool, and then Disney's like, oh no, we're going to stay rated R, and it just kind of felt like they threw more in there just for the sake of having it in there to see we didn't let Disney stop us, we didn't, So to me, it felt like the first 2 movies kind of felt like I've always had this thing about with the graphic violence or the foul language, that I don't mind it if I really feel like it serves the purpose in the story. And I got that from the first 2 movies. This one, it just kind of felt like, you could have cut that down just a little bit. You didn't need to cuss that much. You didn't need to go that graphic on some of your violence. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have felt that way if I hadn't heard about the whole, oh no, what is Disney going to do thing? So maybe I'm just, my perception is colored by that thing. So it made it feel like it was saying, no, we're going to go, super overboard just to prove that we're not getting this, in the way.
I think that probably did color your experience a little bit, because I didn't know about that. Spoilers, surprise, the guy who lives in a cave didn't know about that part. I hadn't heard that. But it stands to reason that there would be those kind of concerns and stuff. And I felt like, I felt like it had been ratcheted up a notch. Like the violence and the language. There was adult language coming from characters that I didn't expect. Characters that were like supporting characters were dropping F-bombs and stuff. But I didn't really feel like it was. I don't feel like it negatively impacted the experience, because I mean, we're dealing with like Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of blood, and like really, letting Hugh Jackman cut loose and drop F-bombs. It's like, it's the version of Wolverine that always existed under the surface. Fox Kids wouldn't let him drop F-bombs in X-Men the animated series, but but he's always been that kind of gruff character, and it just fits with the character.
No, I don't know. It just, to me, like I said, it really felt like he went a little overboard, because, like, okay, he dropped F-bombs in Logan, but it didn't really seem to feel like every other word out of his mouth was an F-bomb. Whereas I kind of got that feeling. Okay, spoiler alerts here. When they're talking during the car fight scene, when they're really pissed at each other, I could really see him dropping a lot of F-bombs then. It fit for me then. But then there were other times when they're just talking and he's dropping F-bombs, and it's just like, okay, it didn't really feel like it was serving the story or developing your character any. It just felt like you dropped it here for the sake of getting another F-bomb in because you can.
You're so analytical. Like, if I mean, I think that, I think that I'm not, when I'm watching two characters in a scene in a movie, I'm not thinking about, does it serve the purpose of the story? Does it advance the character? I'm thinking about, is this a natural conversation for these two people to be having? And really, if you think about, what a straight-laced character Logan is and what a chaotic force in the universe Deadpool is, it makes sense that he'd be that annoyed by the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just, when it reaches the point that it kind of takes me out of the story, because it's like it's dropping all the time, that's when I start. Because if I enjoy the story enough and it keeps me in it, I won't really analyze stuff like that. It's when it starts taking me out of it that when I start going, hey, okay, I don't really see this, to me, it didn't exactly feel that natural either. Maybe I just hang around the right people, but I've never been in conversations that involve that many F-bombs, for no reason.
I didn't have that experience. It didn't take me out of the scene. The only time I've ever seen a movie where it did, where there were so many F-bombs that it took me out of the situation, it was Good Will Hunting. Not Matt Damon, but Ben Affleck. His character. There's like, there's like.
I was going to say that was just before he learned how to act. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like one. If I remember correctly, there's like one sentence, one line of dialogue where he drops the F-bomb like 5 times in one sentence. I didn't even know that was possible. But he's like, yeah, if I fucking come by your fucking house and you're fucking still there, I'm gonna be so fucking disappointed.
Yeah. I've never been up to Boston, and I don't know if that's how they talk up there or not.
So to talk about other stuff related to the movie, I did like that there was so much stuff related to the TVA. I like that they used that as a plot device, and that they used the void or the dumping ground or whatever at the end of the universe as a plot device in the film. It made me feel rewarded for having watched Loki and paid attention.
Yeah, that would definitely be confusing if you haven't seen Loki.
So moving on.
I was just going to say, it was definitely, like I said, there were a few things about it that I didn't care for, but for the most part, I think it was definitely a worthy successor to the previous Deadpools, and I definitely enjoyed myself.
Yeah, since we're actually talking about the TVA plot points, since I pulled that in, we were talking about the excessive F bombs. There's the one part where the woman in charge of the TVA starts falling for Peter Pool, and then the guy from the TVA is like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like that. That was one of those where, like, whoa, I didn't expect sideline McPlot Point over here to drop an F bomb.
Yeah. I just thought of that whole point where he's, telling his story. So like we said, spoilers. He's telling his story to get out of getting in trouble, and then Deadpool shows up, and he's like, I had them, and then the one thing that can completely throw my story under the bus just walked through the door.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But okay, so this is a major spoiler territory, so I don't know if it's gonna make it in the episode or not. But like the whole thing about like, I have to do this. No, I have to do this, and they have the big heroic moment. And then like Deadpool tricks him and locks him out and like tries to go be the big damn hero.
Yeah.
Like that seemed so stupid to me and needless and out of character. I mean, it worked out because, again, major spoilers, but, the whole thing about, it would have killed one of us, but having Deadpool and Wolverine listening to Madonna down in the basement, that's what saves the universe, and saves both of them. I mean, the whole thing about, him being locked out and then him making his way in and him helping out Wade, like it all worked. It's all tropes that we've seen before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the setup for that was so stupid. For him to say, I need to go do this. I got to redeem myself for what happened with the X-Men, and I don't belong in this universe anyway. And then for Deadpool to say, nope, my hero moment, and like block him out and like try and do it all himself, like that was so stupid. Wolverine had a valid point. It was not his universe, and he needed something to redeem himself.
True, but then Wade, like throughout the comics, from what I read, I haven't read all of them, but as I understood, had a real issue about, he kind of goes through this cycle where he wants to be the good guy, he wants to be the hero, he needs to be the hero. He just can't do the hero methods.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the whole, like in the first movie when he's sitting there and Colossus is talking to him about, you be the better man, and right in the middle of it, he shoots the guy and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, what, you were saying something?"
Mm-hmm.
That's Wade. It's like he wants, deep down inside, he wants to be a good guy. He just does it in a not so good guy way.
Mm-hmm.
So and he can be somewhat selfish. So I totally got Wolverine had a good point, but I have to sacrifice even though you have a good point, because I can't really quite see beyond myself and my own needs.
So he was trying to be the hero, but at the same time he was doing it for selfish reasons so that he could be remembered as a hero.
Yeah. And actually, I kind of got from the movie that he was doing it to impress a girl.
Yeah.
Because, the whole thing with how, I need to amount to something, which in his eyes, I don't know, maybe I was just reading things wrong, but the way I got it was he just wanted him to not be sorry for himself, and he had himself so locked up that he wanted the grand gesture, and she was just like, no, just do something. Don't you know, the one thing, joining the Avengers didn't work out, so don't let that define you.
Which I love the scene with Jon Favreau. I love how they got like it felt kind of, the whole Jon Favreau scene felt kind of like the first Deadpool movie, because like 75% of that first Deadpool movie was just on that stretch of highway, like just with the bad guys, and then talking to the good guys, and then developing who Deadpool was as a character and as a hero. It felt like they got a lot out of a little, just having him there with Jon Favreau and being like, "Aren't you the chauffeur?" Yeah, no, common misconception. I'm actually the head of security. And then he's like,
started as a chauffeur, but I then transitioned.
Yeah, it's like, so can I talk to the big man? Oh, the big man. No, big man doesn't do this. What? Oh, cameos? Interviews.
So I still, I never really missed, like when I heard that the Channing Tatum Gambit movie got canceled. I was a little disappointed that there was not going to be a Gambit movie, because he is one of my favorite characters out of the X-Men. But I was like, I just didn't really see Channing Tatum as Gambit. Now having,
and then when you saw
him as that, now I'm kind of like, I really wish we would have got that movie. And I love the whole in jokes about the whole thing about, never getting a chance to finish our arcs or whatever, or even starting them.
Yeah.
Like everyone was talking about how we got the short shift because, we never were developed more. And he's always making comments about, like, I feel like there's somewhere out there I should have been, but I'm not. So I thought that was great.
I like the dig. Daredevil didn't make it. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's okay.
Yeah. And of course, the great, I'm this and I'm that. I'm the only Blade.
There's only ever been one Blade. There's always ever going to be one Blade.
Yeah. It's like, well, actually, the way I hear from development hell, there might be only one Blade.
Right. Yeah.
Even though technically with the TV series, that's already been invalidated. So, was it back in the 90s or early 2000s they did a Blade television show? I never watched the show. I just watched the movies.
Like, okay, clarify something for me. Again, I'm not, 1,000% on what will and won't make it into the episode, but just you and me, like, having never seen the Blade movie, Ryan Reynolds, or the Blade movies, Ryan Reynolds played a character in
Blade Trinity, the third one.
Blade Trinity. Okay, so he's like, Blade's like, I don't like you. He's like, you never did.
Yeah.
Is that a reference to the characters in the movie, or is that a reference to actually Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds?
So I think it might be a reference to both. I know in the movie, he didn't really like the character where Ryan Reynolds played Hannibal King, who was your typical Ryan Reynolds character. And then I've heard all kinds of stories about Wesley Snipes being extremely difficult to work with behind the scenes on that movie. Patton Oswalt has a whole story about stuff that went on especially between Snipes and the director. So.
So I'm just going to throw this into this segment because honestly, I forgot that this was going to be a topic, and so I don't have a title card for it. But speaking of the big man, RDJ is going to be Doom, Doctor Doom.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I don't. So this is something that I was going to address in the last episode because you mentioned Stellan Skarsgård being in a different Disney property than what I'm used to him being in, which is the Thor movies, and then the main MCU group out at large. But you were mentioning Stellan Skarsgård was in something else Disney related, and it's like they have this pool of actors that they trust, and so they'll move them from one property to another, and it feels like, this Doctor Doom thing is an excellent example of that. It shouldn't really be that way, right? I mean, like, they have their stable of actors that they trust to to not only be quality actors, but I guess keep their nose clean whenever they're off the set. With all the trouble we've been talking about people, actors getting canceled, that they were trying to build a new phase of the MCU around. But I feel like it's bad. It's a bad idea to have Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom.
I'm going to pretty much agree with you. I will leave the caveat. I'm not sure how they're explaining it out, because ever since Jonathan Majors had the domestic abuse conviction and Disney cut ties with him, I've done some research, but not a lot, about how they're handling the whole multiverse saga that they were building up to. Since they're sideline Krang now, so Kang, excuse me, Krang is
that's from Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Kang is the Marvel. So I wasn't really sure how they're doing it.
Don't get me wrong, I would like to see Krang the Conqueror.
I don't know.
Hey, Disney does own Saban, so they may have ownership of Ninja Turtles.
Well, I'd like Ninja Turtles. I would love to see something based more off the original comics than the kiddified cartoon that everybody loves. Which honestly, I don't know. Maybe I was just too old for it, for when it came out, but I was actually familiar with the comics before I ever saw and maybe that's what it is. But I was never that fond of
you were familiar with the comics. I was not familiar with them until the TV series.
Yeah. So I'd actually read some of the early comics, and is much more graphically violent and more mature. And I would love to see a more mature Ninja Turtles. But
yeah. By the way, the intro song for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that's sung by Chuck Lorre, writer of 2.5 Men and the Big Bang Theory. He was originally a musician, and he was working for Saban Entertainment, and they said, we need a theme song. And so he went and worked with a buddy of his over the weekend, and then we need something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so they just cut a demo of it, took it to Haim Saban, and played it for him, and said, we think it should be something like this. It's like, oh, okay. And then as soon as they leave the room, he's like, this is fine the way it is. Let's just use that.
Yeah. That honestly, it does not surprise me that theme song was written over a weekend. That kind of really feels like that, how much effort was put into it.
Yeah, and Haim Saban being notoriously cheap, using the clips from Japanese TV series and Power Rangers and a bunch of his other shows. It figures that he would be so cheap as hey, that guy we're already paying, he already recorded us something, let's just take that and use that.
Yeah. But as far as RDJ as Dr. Doom. Unless they're going to try to explain it off as some sort of variant of Tony Stark, I do think having the same actor playing two completely different parts, especially when that actor was the cornerstone of your product for the longest time, is definitely a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah. Because the whole point of the MCU is that they all exist in the same realm, in the same timeline, right?
yeah, I mean, originally, and then they started with Phase 5, I guess it is. Pretty much post Endgame, they've started to try to work the whole multiverse, that there are multiple versions of the world that were spawned from different decisions made. And so there are various versions of the same person in every universe that have done different, could have very radically different lives.
Okay.
It's all how you want to get into the whole multiversal theory and stuff, but
yeah. Okay.
I'm still going to give it a try. I'm not going to write it off completely, but even as a diehard MCU fan, I am getting to the point where I'm starting to feel like, okay, yeah, maybe it is time to turn it in and give it a rest.
The thing is, I don't really give a crap about Fantastic Four. Like, there was the Fantastic Four movies, and then there was Fan Four Stick, and so it's just been train wreck after train wreck with that franchise.
I kind of like, I don't know how to feel about it, because definitely so far it's been a train wreck every time they try to adapt it. But I kind of feel like most Marvel movies were a train wreck before the MCU. The only possible exception would be the first two X-Men. But every other Marvel character I saw them adapt into a movie, it just wasn't very good, because the people making the movie didn't know the characters as well as they do at the MCU. They intimately know the characters and knew how to handle them. I think that's part of why the original run of movies from the MCU of each character that they were building up to the Avengers worked so well, because they knew their characters, they knew how to handle them. So I am kind of curious to see that now that it's back in Marvel's hands. Is that going to ring true, or is it going to be pretty much like most of the rest of their movies, where it feels like they're starting to kind of get burned out and not doing well about handling their own character?
Yeah, but then I think that maybe there are some properties that are just not worth the time and attention. Like, do we need, in this universe, in this timeline, do we need another Daredevil origin movie? Do we need another Fantastic Four movie? The MCU came out of the gate doing big numbers right from the beginning, and they kind of got this sense of, we can do no wrong. But like, maybe Daredevil isn't worth your time and attention. Maybe Fantastic Four maybe they're not so fantastic. Well, maybe they don't deserve your time and attention.
Yeah, and I do want to put another caveat, just to kick back to what I said earlier. Blade 1 and 2 were actually pretty good too. I mean, special effects in Blade 1 were god awful, but that's kind of what we had to work with at the time. I'd actually love someone to go back in and try and update the special effects to that movie, for at least the final fight. Because otherwise, I thought the movie was great. I still think Guillermo del Toro's Blade 2 was the best of the trilogy. But yeah, no. So
Thank you for saying that thing that does not in any way relate to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, you may be right with that about, certain characters just not really, moving on. I hadn't heard that Daredevil was another origin movie. I thought it was supposed to be a continuation, essentially, of.
When I looked at that roadmap during the last episode, I thought it said Daredevil and then, like, in parentheses said origin story.
I hadn't heard that. I know it's called Born Again, but I didn't know it was supposed to be.
Oh, so Daredevil becomes a Christian.
Apparently.
That's nice. That's Finally, we have a religious superhero, another one, and we don't have to rely on Bible Man anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we had Larry Boy from the.
That's a true superhero right there.
That's. He was derivative of Batman, but then again, who isn't?
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty much everybody these days. But then again, I say that because I have a superhero project in the works, and I do have a character that is somewhat derivative of Batman.
Moving on to our topics. Topic 1, I'm calling this one Adventures in New Media. So, I wanted to make it so that it said Adventures in Babysitting, and then that was struck through, and it said New Media instead of Babysitting, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to do that.
Yeah.
But I thought for this segment, rather than talking about anything related to movies, you and I have tried several different forays into the world of new media. So, like not broadcast media, but this brave new world of like YouTube and Twitch streaming and all of that stuff. And so I thought we'd talk about some of our failed ventures that we went through before we got to this successful venture.
Well, I would say it's successful in the fact that it at least got off the ground. I don't think any of our other previous projects have.
Right. That's why I named the first episode, you did it, crazy son of a bitch, you actually did it. Because, if we actually did it. Like, we came up with a plan and we executed on it. You are OCD. Like you said, you want everything to be perfect. That's why I try and keep your hands off the steering wheel as much as possible with this whole process. Like, half the time you come in and you don't even know what's going to be discussed in the end. And I'm the one who edits it. I grant you final approval before it gets uploaded, but usually you forego that right. And I appreciate you having that much trust in me. But the thing is, it makes sense. We both have the same objective. We're both trying to create the same quality product in the end. So it makes sense that I would, treat this project with the same level of craftsmanship and sincerity and seriousness that you would.
I trust that you'll do it right, and not be like me where nitpick over a little thing to where it just wouldn't happen. Because I get my own way when it comes to creative stuff.
The first episode, I did nitpick the hell out of it. Like, you had allergies, and I was going through and cutting out every cough that you had, going and like using one person's using my webcam to cover up your webcam to cover every time you blew your nose on camera and stuff like that.
I tried to turn away. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know there were just some where you missed it, and like
had a really bad weekend that weekend when we recorded.
Yeah,
I don't know why that happened, because I usually don't have really bad allergies. There was just something that happened that weekend that just irritated my system.
I'm not saying all of that to berate you. I'm saying that because as it relates to the editing of the episode, because I did nitpick all of those
bad.
things and want them to be as great as possible and like as perfect as possible. The going back through and editing episode 2, I had and still have allergies of some sort and cough every so often in the middle of these episodes. I've gone through and cut out as many of those as I can, and in the recording of that episode, in this episode, I've been conscious of it and tried not to cough when someone was speaking, like cough in the middle of my sentences or like in your sentences, so that they're easier to clip out. But there's been 2 or 3 where I coughed while you were talking, but I'm like, it wasn't that loud, and I just left it in. So I'm letting go of that nitpicky. It has to be perfect before it gets uploaded thing. It's gonna be pretty perfect. It's just not gonna be absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Well, see, if it was left up to me, we'd probably be trying to do reshoots rather than like we're gonna go back and splice in this
shit. If you were doing it, I would have been recast already. You would have been recast already. It would be Topher Grace and Tobey Maguire sitting here doing this podcast.
Well, I still say they're great foils for each other.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna get on the phone. You're gonna be like, hey, do you know what Josh Gad is doing right now? Do you think he'd look good in a pair of teal glasses? Do you think he could pull off that look?
You probably have funnier things to say.
God damn it.
Sorry. We've been, I don't know, I can think about 3 or 4 offhand. I still have footage on my hard drive that never got put together.
Right.
For what little we filmed.
That's what I feel kind of bad about that. About like every time I come up with a project, I'm like, hey, I've got an idea for this YouTube series. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we pull together whatever crappy cameras we have, my flip phones or like cheap a camcorder that I bought at Best Buy or whatever, and like trying to make a series of it, and it always ends up as footage on your hard drive or on my cell phone or both, and like it's just like I said, okay, so like one that I can remember is 15 Ways to Be Famous on YouTube. You remember that one?
Vaguely. Did we even shoot footage for it, or did we get that far on?
I mean, yeah, no, I think I shot an intro for it. I remember that.
Okay.
So
I don't have any of the footage for that one.
Right. So 15 Ways to Be Famous on YouTube was a YouTube series, a YouTube mini series, because I presume it would be 15 episodes long, and you'd have because viral videos and YouTube culture were evolving at the time. This was back when we were in college, and my idea was that I have this list of 15 different things that you could try in order to blow up and become somebody famous on YouTube. Ultimately, I gave up on that project. My excuse was that I gave up on it because the landscape of YouTube was evolving in such a way that trying to come up with 15 specific ways was a moving target, because like some of the things I'd written were out of vogue at that point and some new things had come into style. But ultimately what it was is that we were both in college and too busy, and we're a couple of disorganized schlubs like what we were talking about a moment ago. And so it just didn't come together, because we can come up with ideas, but as far as how getting, how it goes together and becomes an actual thing, that the what is easy, the how is hard. And that's why we have Kara.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I was just thinking about one of my favorite projects that we never got off the ground, but we were working towards was what was it? Double feature, double dare.
A double feature dare.
It was a double feature
Yeah.
dare where
Yeah.
we basically would challenge each. It was the I guess they call them watch videos, reaction videos, where somebody sees
Yeah.
something for the first time,
Mhm.
and we would challenge each other to watching 2 films that were somehow related, chosen by whatever theme, and then they'd have to watch it
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
try to make it through both films because we both have a love of bad films. Just we love different types of bad films.
Right.
So, and I'm like, I had a whole list put together where I think we would have had, like, I had what 20 or 30 different pairs of double features. I had themed
Mhm.
on various things, and some of them were really good movies, and some of them were really bad, and some
Mhm.
were a mix of the two. And that's what I kind of almost wish we had got off the ground, but
Yeah.
mainly just so I could get you to watch more movies because you don't watch enough of them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That is absolutely true. Yeah.
Really,
And so in my DVD collection, I started buying bad movies I wanted you to watch. Double feature dare. Yeah, that was an idea that I had. It was either going to be its own YouTube channel or was going to be uh, a running series on a movie related YouTube channel because movies were big at the time. That was you had Screen Rant, you had Honest Trailers, you had so movie YouTubers were big at the time. So we
yeah,
thought we'd get our piece of the pie. There was Opinionated.
opinionated.
When
Still have the footage for that for when we were filming for the opening.
when the Totally Rad show went off, Kevin Rose sold Revision 3, sold it to Discovery Channel, which they had no intention of keeping it in the format that it was. So that meant that all of the Revision 3 shows immediately got canceled as soon as Kevin Rose signed that agreement. So I shouldn't say immediately because they went by the wayside over the course of the next few months. It wasn't like they pulled the plug and told everybody to get out that day, which they totally could have done. But the Totally Rad show was a Revision 3 show that went by the wayside when Kevin Rose sold Revision 3. And then we looked at that hole in the entertainment landscape and said, hey, maybe we can create something that fills that void. And so I remember us sitting on the couch with the green screen behind us, talking about Hansel and Gretel Hexenjäger. And yeah, it was a good idea. It's just we were all in college, and our producer didn't have time to produce it, and we didn't have time to record it, and we didn't have time to watch the movies to talk about in the show, and so it just didn't pan out.
I was gonna say, for the record, honestly, I think pretty much everything we tried was basically your idea, because I was not really that into YouTube at the time and wasn't really aware of what was going on. But you constantly were like, "Oh, we need to go do this for YouTube," and I'm like, "Okay, sounds like fun. Let's do it."
Right, and then I tried to do my own thing. Show your work, and show your work was sort of a vlog series where I would just like sit and talk about whatever media I thought was interesting.
I remember
I did a whole.
I don't remember what it was called, but you were doing some instructional videos about like claw games and like the prize games at video, like Dave and Buster's and stuff like that.
Yeah. So after I gave up on Show Your Work, which I recorded like 3 or 4 episodes of that, and
and then I got really into following arcade YouTubers. I didn't. I was like, I didn't realize this was a thing until I went through and found one of Matt Magnone's videos. Matt Magnone, known these days by as Arcade Matt. His original handle was like Matt3758, I think. But he was the person who I learned all the claw machine claw game strategies from. And then after watching his videos, and then there's another great couple of claw YouTubers, claw game YouTubers called Plush Time Wins. They're based out of Florida. I started watching their videos, and I was like, look at these people. They're going to the arcade. They're having fun. They're learning how to win at these skill games, and they're having fun showing people how to do it. And so that was a point in time when I lived near a Dave and Buster's, and Dave and Buster's had Half Price Wednesdays, and I had worked out a schedule at work where I was off on Wednesdays. So what we would do is we'd take my crappy flip cameras and like whatnot over to the Dave and Buster's, and and the great thing about arcades is arcades are one of those places where if you have a camera, they're not going to hassle you about having it out, because people have birthday parties and group events and stuff, and they expect people are going to be filming those special moments in their lives. So they see a couple of guys with a camera out and they don't think anything of it, because it wasn't my birthday every single Wednesday, but they didn't know that.
Yeah. I just looked it up real quick because I still have the footage that we did. Arcade Mission is what we called it.
Arcade Mission is what that series was, yeah. And so the idea was that I would not just. I actually wanted to have a YouTube channel that had multiple series going on at the same time. So I had one that was specifically about Claw Machine game. I had one series that was specifically about claw machine game winning, claw machine strategies. So the same stuff that Plush Time Wins and Arcade Matt were doing. But then also Arcade Mission was an idea of like, if you set yourself a certain goal before going into the mission, like you were going to get a certain number of points in a certain game, you were going to do this, or you were going to do that. I remember the first episode, there was the fishbowl game where you like had the ping pong balls and they come down and they land in the fish bowls. I had like a certain score I had to get, and like once I got it and we were done filming the episode, you're like, that was lame, because you just came up with a number and then you hit the number. So you could have just stood there all day and just kept playing until you got the number. Yeah. It was like, it should be a certain number of points within a certain number of hours or something, or a certain number of plays.
I know part of why we didn't get those off the ground was my perfection thing too, sometimes, because we would film stuff and I would just kind of feel like things weren't right. So I was always trying to, we got to do something else. And it just got to the point where, all right, Steve, just shut up and do it.
Yeah.
And then there was Two Dudes and Chinese Food. You remember that one?
I vaguely remember a pitch for this. I don't remember.
I've got a little bit of footage. We tried to do one where we did it was like a movie review where it was just us sitting there talking about a movie and eating Chinese food, which I think at the time all we got was like egg rolls. So it was just us eating egg rolls.
Yes, I remember eating poorly microwaved egg rolls and talking about movies. Yes, Two Dudes and Chinese Food. Yes. I forgot that ever got to the filming stage. Yeah, so that was a fun trip down memory lane for all the new media attempts that we went through, and it's nice that we've actually gotten to the point where we're actually doing something. We've actually been organized enough to pull something like this off.
Yeah. Actually,
So anyway,
surprising, but
yeah. So onward to the next topic.
Okay, real quick. Well,
yeah.
What is that underneath your name? That is the weirdest
uh,
nickname I have ever seen in my life.
Underneath
You're right
my
there.
name.
There you go.
Yeah. So I had if you follow our YouTube page or our Facebook page, we had started a Discord. I put out the call for people to join the Discord in the last episode. But the link that I put out, you, Cassidy, rightly pointed out to me, was not a working link after the first few days, because I didn't realize the Discord links, unless you set them otherwise, have an expiration date. So I wound up putting up a Discord link that didn't work, and so to kind of rectify that, to atone for my sins, I put the Discord address, the permanent link to the Discord, under my name. I decided to forego the funny thing that we normally do, where you put like a tagline underneath your name, so that I could utilize that space. Yes, your funny tagline there. I replaced mine with the Discord link, just so it has extra representation. Okay, so onward to topic number 2. Red, Babu Di Babu Die. My mom sent me this link to an article about forgotten action comedy with Bruce Willis hits Netflix top charts 14 years later. Care to take a chance on what movie it is they're talking about?
Well, I'm gonna have to say it was Die Hard. Now, I want to argue with this article, because I'm sorry, I've never forgotten Red. I actually own a copy of it. I think I have it on Blu-ray, and I have loved the movie forever.
Yeah, you and I went and saw Red at the Arboretum.
Yeah, I think it was the first time I had seen Carl Urban in a movie and actually thought, oh my God, this man can act. And like his earlier stuff, I'm sorry, I never really thought he was a very good actor. But then I saw this movie and I was like, okay, no, this guy has potential. And he's done an amazing job in a lot of films since then.
Yeah, so, I mean, what really was a standout role for me when it comes to Carl Urban was Bones in the Star Trek movies.
That was the other one that really got me going. All right, yes, Red wasn't a fluke. This man can act.
Yeah.
I really did believe he was a younger DeForest Kelley.
Yeah, he did a very good job. Yeah, he was one of the, like him and the guy who played Spock,
Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, I kept wanting to call him Zac Efron. I'm like, no, that's not Zac Efron.
Nope, wrong Zach.
They both took the characters from the original Star Trek and like embodied those characters. Like Chris Pine as Kirk and the woman who played Uhura. I don't feel like they were.
Wasn't that Zoe Saldana?
Yeah, I think it was. they don't. I don't feel like they embodied the characters the same way that Zachary Quinto and Carl Urban did.
Yeah, no, but no, I even like the sequel, though I have to admit I don't think it's quite as good as the original. But
yeah, the Star Trek Into Darkness, there was the whole thing about like I'm taking the ship away, and we're putting somebody else in command of the Enterprise, and then we can't have somebody else in command of the Enterprise. We're gonna have to give it back to Kirk. Like, why? These people are playing hee haw with the fuck around gang. Like, what was all of that about? Like,
actually, I was kind of referring to Red and Red 2, but
oh,
yes, I did enjoy Into Darkness.
That's why that goes back to the thing I was saying in the last episode about you need to be specific about the titles of the movies you're talking about. I'm thinking about the second Star Trek movie. You're talking about the second Red movie. I never saw Red 2.
Oh, it's good. It's not as good as the original Red, but
okay. But going back to Red, yeah, Red was good. I liked.
How did you feel about that? The con thing with Into Darkness. You know, where they said it wasn't con. I'm just screwing with you because you were talking about Star Trek and I was talking about, and so you said go back to Red, so now I was going to go back to Star Trek.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And you spending 5 minutes explaining the joke just makes it so much better.
Oh, well, then I can spend a little bit more time so you can really understand where I was going. Okay, about Red.
If I roll my eyes anymore, they're going to roll completely off of my head. Jesus Christ! Some days I just can't with you. Anyway, so Red, I never saw Red 2, and I'm not surprised to hear you say that it's not as good as the original because it's a sequel. But
very rare.
The reason why I want, and by the way, I was not being facetious at the beginning of this segment. I really did name the segment Red Babu Di Babu Die, and then immediately ask you to guess what movie we're talking about. That was not me bullshitting. I actually did not make the connection to that in my mind. But it did make it extremely easy for you to guess.
Yeah.
So the reason why we're talking about this is not so much a discussion of Red, even though it is a really good movie. But I wanted to more get into the larger discussion of like how the streaming services find these like hidden gems or buried gems because like I mean exactly, to call Red a forgotten movie is, that guy forgot about it, and so he wrote the article from that perspective. But
I thought it was fairly successful when it came out, so I kind of find it weird to be referred to as a forgotten action flick. But
yeah, well, I mean, it is 14 years old, and we're probably the only people who are talking about it on the internet right now.
Well, not the only people, because he was talking about it in his article.
Yes.
I'm just saying, you said the only people talking about it.
I know.
That's not entirely accurate.
Like, it's obvious to me that you've never taken an improvisation class, because in improv, they teach you a principle called yes and, where you try to make the other person look good in the scene. Whatever it is that they suggest, you say yes and. You go along with whatever premise they presented, and you try to give them something else to work with.
Okay, so yes, and you're wrong. because we're not the only people I can live.
Okay. So the thing is, like, I was reading this article, and by reading I mean skimming. I actually did more research than usual. I read more than just the headline. But it got me thinking about how, like, I know that consistently in the Netflix top 10 or top 20 or whatever, there's usually the movie In Bruges, which was like not really a hit at the time that it came out, at least, from what I remember or what I know of it. People have found it and they watch it consistently enough that it usually makes the rankings on Netflix, or at least it did on a regular basis back when I had Netflix.
I'll be honest, I've never really paid much attention to their top whatever. Like I'll be scrolling and they'll list like what's hot, and I'll see like the first 5, because that's what you have to kind of scroll over to see anymore. And generally speaking, I only see like, okay, wow, they just released this movie. Okay, yeah, it's in the top 5. I mean, I've never really paid any attention beyond that. I'm like,
there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever wondered how lazy Cassidy is, he's so lazy that he won't scroll to the right.
That's just not accurate. You just got to have something that makes me interested enough. And I can really care less what's popular on Netflix. I'm on Netflix to find something I want to watch. And I got to be honest, like 90% of the time, what's popular isn't what interests me on Netflix.
Okay. Yeah, I can accept that and I can respect that. And that's more what the algorithm is for, is to help you figure out what it is you want to watch, not what everybody else wants to watch. Now, I'm a different kind of viewer, because back when I had Netflix, I was very much the type of person who would run through everything that the algorithm had suggested me, and then when the algorithm failed me and my own sense of taste failed me, then I would look at the top 10 or whatever. That being said, I still have never watched In Bruges, which is what I'm trying to talk about here. Like,
really? You've never seen In Bruges? That is a great movie. You really need to see that.
See, now at this point in the conversation, I can't tell if you're bullshitting me or not. Like,
no, I love In Bruges. I mean, it took me a while to actually get around to watching it. It was a friend that recommended it to me. I didn't really know anything about it when it came out. Honestly, didn't really have any interest until somebody told me, you need to see this. And then I watched it.
There we go.
Oh, right.
Now we're getting to the point I'm trying to make, is that that same sort of thing. Like, there's a bunch of people who found In Bruges, not some of them, it could have been a person whose opinion they respect, that where they said you should watch this, but for a lot of people it was probably that chart or the algorithm showing them, hey, there's this thing that you didn't see before. And I think that maybe that is an interesting indictment on the movie industry, as far as like how they judge and gauge and try to evaluate what it is people are going to be interested in. What people are really interested in is this 14-year-old Bruce Willis movie and this movie called In Bruges, and not the current remake of of whatever intellectual property they found to remake.
Sorry, they just recently did a brand new, I think it's on Apple Plus, the television series by Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Childhood favorite movie, and one of my favorite directors of all time, Terry Gilliam movie. Time Bandits. They've like completely revamped it, and I was just like saw a preview for it, and I'm like, I generally love his stuff, Taika Waititi, what that director's stuff also, but I'm like, I just don't know about this new series. It just doesn't look right to me. Like it. I don't know. I have like I actually kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit, anyways. Is that my love-hate relationship with remakes? Because like sometimes remakes are really good, and they're worth watching. But it feels like that's 1%, and the other 99% of remakes are just utter garbage. And again, I was just looking on Reddit the other day about the subject, was about what movies people would like to see be remade. Older movies that are had potential but were never executed right. And it just and there was people talking about how Hollywood will never do that. They only want to go with something that was done right because there's that built-in fan base and no name. So it's like, you don't make the movies that were good, remake the movies that could have been good. But instead, that's like, again, part of my love-hate relationship with the Hollywood.
Right, and it's so it's so stupid because like you're gonna take something that was made good in the first place and you're gonna make it bad.
More often than not, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
There's been a couple of times I've seen a good remake, but more often than not, you took a good movie and just made it horrible. And that's why
like every time I hear that Netflix is going to make a live action adaptation of an anime.
Yeah. Well, I honestly would only say that I've only seen one movie that I would consider remotely close to being a good adaptation of an anime, and it's a movie that most people don't like. And I think it's kind of underrated. Was the Speed Racer by the Wachowskis.
Oh yeah,
and people don't like it because it's very stylized, but to me, it really felt like a live action anime. And I'm not that familiar with Speed Racer, but for what I have seen of Speed Racer, that felt like Speed Racer.
I am familiar with Speed Racer, and it did feel very true to the source material. Yeah.
Okay. So that's just not one of the animes I ever got into, but I have watched some episodes of it.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of wish fulfillment, because like God, like who hasn't watched Speed Racer and wanted to actually in real life ride in the Mach 5? Like that's like, yeah. So, but there was a real life one that
I'm gonna say I kind of felt like Battle Angel Alita and I know this is probably gonna get me a lot of hate. Ghost in the Shell were passable adaptations. I really could have done without the whitewashing in Ghost in the Shell. That was just
right.
And no offense to Scarlett Johansson, she's a great actress, but she was not right for that part.
Right.
Even if they justified it by the end story about how they were transferred her mind into another body kind of thing, but still.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just like remakes and stuff in general, more often than not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I really kind of get back to like the whole Netflix things. I actually have a real issue with the algorithm, because and not just with Netflix, just about every streaming service I've ever seen, their algorithm of, hey, we think you like this movie, consists of movies I've already watched or movies I have absolutely no interest in whatsoever. I almost never find anything on those suggestions that I haven't already seen that remotely interests me. And
I think the key part of that is that I haven't already seen.
well, the weird part is like a lot of the recommendations I've seen is, hey, we think you'd like this movie because if you look at your video history, you've streamed this movie on our service before. It's like you're recommending a movie I've already watched on your service instead of recommending me something new. I mean, I kind of get the, oh, we think you'd like this movie. Well, you don't know that I've already seen this movie. But I've got recommendations for movies that I've already watched on their service.
I think the reason why you're pissed off at the algorithm is because, and it's going to sound weird for me to say it this way because it sounds like I'm blaming you and not blaming the algorithm. And in a sense, I am. But what I'm going to say is I think the reason why you're pissed off at the algorithm is because you're an outlier. Like, we think you would like this because you've streamed to this on our service before. Bitch, do you know how many times I've watched the same YouTube video over and over again? Like people do that. People watch the same thing over again.
Well, I mean, I do go back and watch movies over that I've watched that I like before. I've never really done it with a YouTube video, but
human beings are the human brain builds up a chemical response where it likes things that it's seen before. It's built for pattern recognition. So if it sees something or hears something that it's liked before, or not even that it's liked before, just that it's recognized before, then it will say that it likes it because it's recognizable.
Well, I understand that to a certain degree because there have been songs that I've heard when they were on the radio. First time I heard them, I'm like, eh. But the more I've heard them on the radio, the more and more I start going, oh, no, this song's actually pretty good. So, so I get that. Yeah. I don't think I've ever really got that response out of videos for myself. I'm like,
the way it happens for me is I watch a lot of compilation videos, special type of editing for humor that's known in the parlance as YouTube poops or YTPs. And it's part of YouTube culture all the way back to the beginning of YouTube. But the thing is that those are quick edits. It's lots of jokes. And so I'll just be going through my day and I'll just remember a specific joke that happened in a YTP. And I'm like, yeah, that was really funny. There were a lot of funny jokes in that video. And then I'll go look it up and I'll watch the whole video over again and laugh at the jokes that I find funny. And because they're so rapid fire, if it's one of the ones that are done by CS188 or The Things, both YouTubers you should check out. Not you, Cassidy, the audience. I've showed you a selection of videos from both of those creators before. But anyway, so yeah, that's what happens to me is I'll remember a certain joke and I'll be like, yeah, that was funny, and all the jokes in that were funny. I should watch that again.
Well, I'm just saying is like, as far as the repetitive, you start to like something because you become more familiar with it. I have actually never really had a thing with a video where like I didn't really like it the first time, and then I go back and watch it again, and then watch it again and watch it again, and slowly develop, oh, I actually like this. It's like I talked about the guilty masochistic pleasures of, it's bad. There was like one part of it you liked, and then you go back and watch it again, and you're like, why did I watch this again? It wasn't worth all this for that one part.
like we talked about in the last episode with
the when I mentioned like,
Rubens.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that movie has never there's that one part I like, but the rest of the movie's never grown on me with repetitive things. So that's actually one of the few, like with video, I've never really gotten that. Repetitive viewings make me like something more.
Yeah,
in fact, I get burnt. Like there were movies I loved that the more I watched them. Like I had a friend that used to always put a movie on, and it was either Dazed and Confused, or a lot of the time he would do The Lost Boys, and he just put them on to have them run as like background noise. So whenever I'd come over, they'd be on, and I'm such a cinephile, I can't ignore it. If there's something on like a television, my gaze will go to watch it, and I'll get busy watching it, whether I like it or not. And just the repetitive viewings, as much as I still love The Lost Boys, I don't watch it much anymore because I got so burned out on it. I'm sick of it. And there was like a lot of shows where I binge watch multiple seasons, and then I've never been able to watch the rest of it because I watched too much of it all at once. The repetitiveness of it, even though it's also new, a new episode, but still repetitive parts of it, I got saturated with it. And it didn't make me like it more. It made me like it less.
Right. So let me ask you this. Like I remember back in the day, I used to work with these two guys. They were brothers, and they were obsessed with The Big Lebowski. And I had never seen it. And this was back in the day when Netflix was still on DVDs. I think technically they still do have a DVD distribution.
They stopped it a couple of years back.
Yeah.
It just wasn't profitable for them anymore. They were making all their money from streaming. So
totally
they
makes sense.
Discontinued it.
Yeah. Sad, but at the same time, it makes sense.
I think it sucks just because there are older movies that like, hey, I haven't seen that in forever. I want to see that again. And I can't find it anywhere. It's not streaming. It's not at the library. Rental places don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That I think is a complete and total tragedy, but that's a whole other subject. We won't get into that right now.
Yeah. So I had Netflix at the time, and so they're like, "Oh, Big Lebowski." I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get Big Lebowski. And having the DVD service and living in Austin was pretty awesome because they had a distribution center in Austin. So I got the 3 discs at a time plan, and I could turn them over pretty much daily. Like, put one that I've watched in the mail, have a second disc, and then the third disc is going to show up tomorrow. And so like I could like constantly rotate them. Anyway, so I got Big Lebowski, and I watched Big Lebowski, and I go back to work the next day, and I'm like, yeah, I watched it. It was fine. Like, what do you mean it was fine? It wasn't the best movie ever? It didn't blow your mind? I think no, it was all right. And it's like, well, how many times did you watch it? I watched it once. Oh, you gotta watch it more than once. You gotta watch it like 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's like, I don't want to watch a movie that I have to watch 3 or 4 or 5 times in order to get the full experience from it.
Like, it's not the best movie ever, but I do feel slightly, I don't want to say hurt, annoyed that you think it was just all right. Because it is a great movie.
I mean, I will quote the movie. Hey, nice marmot. I hate the fucking Eagles. Like, I'll quote the goddamn movie. It's fine. It's good. It's what it's it is what it is. Like, I mean, there are people who there are people like me who think that The Big Lebowski is a fine movie and a good movie. You know, The Dude Abides. Okay, I'll keep quoting it. Like, you know, all right. So, but there's, but then there are other people who want to build a goddamn religion around the thing, and it's just not. It's,
well, yeah, that's excessive, but
so
I don't know. Maybe
I
it's
don't
just,
know. I
maybe
think
it's
I'm a
just
little
because there's
defensive because I worked with those guys, and they were always like Big Lebowski, Big Lebowski.
well, yeah, perception can really, alter how you go into a movie. Like
Mhm.
I still to this day I have never seen the entirety of Titanic. When it first
Yeah.
came out, I had a real close friend that knew me well, and he's like, "You need to see this movie. This is going to be a movie you will love." But I've heard so much hype about it, I just got sick of hearing it, and I
Mhm.
like still today, not seen it in its entirety.
Hmm.
It's something I plan on doing eventually, just because I kind of do need to see the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to watch all 100 of AFI's top 100 movies of all time.
uh-huh.
I think it's on
Where
that list.
I'm pretty sure it is. Where are you at on that? By the way,
I am. Here, let me look it up real quick. I think I am at 80 some movies out of the 100.
Mhm.
How many do I got left?
Wow, that's pretty good.
Well, when I sat down to start doing it, I think it was already halfway through them, just with all the movies I watch.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow, that's pretty bad.
I'm exactly at 80 movies out of the 100, so I've only got 20 left to watch.
Okay, but you started off at 50, so that's far
Yeah.
less impressive than I thought it was to start.
Yeah, it was somewhere in there. I was like going down the list. I'm like, oh, I've seen that. Oh, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
not everybody watches as much as I do. So.
yeah, I was surprised and unpleasantly surprised in my own behavior just a moment ago. Like when you mentioned Big Lebowski, I got really defensive. I didn't like nobody was attacking me, but I still got really defensive. I think what it was is I was picturing all of the fanboys like in the comment section on YouTube, like roasting me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I was trying to like preemptively fend them off.
I just like I really there's a scene in there that just really reminds me of one of our conversations, and um, I play the part of Walter, played by John Goodman, and you're the dude. Uh, and it's where, am I wrong? Am I wrong? No, you're just an asshole. And I'm like, that kind of sums up a lot of our conversation. Because I could get nitpicky and I could be kind of a jerk. So, but I'm like, am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. You're just a jerk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I'm also a Coen Brothers fan. So,
yeah.
Again, I mean,
Okay.
I do think that people take their fan worship of it way too far. But
Right.
it was still a really good movie. So it's almost offensive to me to hear it. Someone just say it was okay. I was like, no, it was better than okay. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it was definitely better than okay. Anyways.
Hey, nice marmot. We've come to the end of our time, good chum. So, what do you want to say to the nice people in the outro?
Watch more movies.
No, you said that last time. Nope.
Nope.
No, you do not. You do not get to get your own catchphrase. We are not popular enough for you to try and make a catchphrase stick.
I'm not trying to make a catchphrase stick. I simply want people to watch more movies. That way, when I go to talk to someone about a movie, they know what I'm talking about. It's annoying when you watch a movie and you want to discuss it with somebody and nobody's seen it.
Like literally nobody else has seen it. Like you're the only person. Like the director, the director of photography, the editor, and now you. Those are the people who have seen it.
Yeah, but no, honestly, don't have anything I can think of that I really need to say.
Okay, so Cassidy says eat more chicken. we're not hashtag not sponsored. We are not sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
I was gonna say the Chick-fil-A of cinema.
It comes with waffle fries and not available on Sunday.
Well,
I wish the show came with waffle fries. Anyway,
yeah. We're not as funny as we think we are.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I'm hilarious. Anyway, say goodnight to the good people.
Good night, good people.
And I will echo that sentiment. Thank you very much for listening and watching the Less Than Fresh Movie podcast. And until next time, dear viewers.